Okay, so we're going to have a look at a question from the paper 2 of the Cambridge IGCSE, the programming and problem solving. This is the second question in winter 2017 region 2 paper, where you have to write an algorithm using either pseudocode or flowcharts. I'm going to show you how to tackle this question using pseudocode. Okay, but before we tackle this question, we need to ensure that we read the question. Okay, so we need to know what the story of the program is and what the program needs to do. Okay, so we've got 4 bullet points there, and the first bullet point says inputting a positive number. So we've got to input a number. Okay, and this number is going to do something for us. And the second bullet point says use this value to set up how many other numbers are to be inputted. Okay, so from there you will see and you will notice that these two are linked, in that if you was to write number 10 for the first initial integer, this will come up, or this should come up 10 times. It should be asking you for 10 numbers. Okay, if that first initial value was 2, then this bit would ask you for only 2 numbers. It would only ask you for 2 numbers. Okay, once you've inputted these the numbers, okay, it's going to ask you to calculate and output the total and the average of these numbers. Okay, so my thoughts are we could do this with a loop. Okay, and what I'll show you is I'll show you how to tackle this problem first using a for loop, and then how to tackle the problem using a while loop, and then I'll also go through the for and the while loop within Python as well. Okay, so I'll show you the Python equivalent in terms of tackling this program. Okay, to start off with the pseudocode, we need to get the program to ask the user for the initial integer in terms of how many times or how many numbers the program is going to ask for. Okay, so in pseudocode we need to write input, not niput, input. And we need an appropriate variable name, and we'll call this number count. Okay, this variable will hold the number of times that your loop will go round, essentially asking for a number. Okay, we need to have an initial, we need to have some way of recording the results every time it goes around the loop. So you need some way of adding everything together, and an appropriate variable for that would be total, and it will be total equals, and then we're going to initialize it as 0. So we'll start off as 0. Okay, that's the initial count. And then we're going to start off with the for loop. Okay, so we start off with the for loop in pseudocode, and we're going to use a counter. Okay, and we're going to say count equals 1 to number count, which is the name of that variable there. In pseudocode, we wouldn't actually use equals. We'd use the arrow. So what I'll do is, if I delete that and zoom in a little bit and use my trusty pen, have an arrow and an arrow there. Okay, and that should allow us to, yeah, okay, so that's fine. Okay, so now that we've initialized those variables, we've asked the user for a number count, we've entered the for loop. Okay, so when we enter the for loop, we need to make sure that we do indent to say that the next lines of code belong to this loop. Okay, so once you enter the loop, you need to get the program to ask you another question, which is input number. Okay, so now you're going to be asking for the actual numbers that you're going to be using to calculate the total and the average. Okay, and then also in this for loop, you want to have a running sum, and obviously we're using the total variable. And in this case, total will equal the original total from the previous run round of the loop plus number, which is what you've just typed in. Okay, so what this will do is every time it keeps going round, it will just have a running total. Okay, and to come out the loop, it's next. So what this is doing, what this code is doing here, is every time it goes around the loop, it will say next count, and it will go around until it reaches the top end of the range. So for example, if you typed in 10, okay, it will do a count 10 times. It will keep going around this loop 10 times. Now, once you're out the loop, you need to have some sort of output, okay, to show the results of your program, but you also need to calculate the average. Okay, so we need to calculate the average. So to work out the average, we need a new variable, average, and this will equal to the total divided by the number of times we have gone round the loop, okay, number k. And then we can print out a statement. Print out the statement, the total is, let me say total, because I'm going to show the variable, and the average is average. Okay, so what this will do, this will print out a more sufficient output message. Now this question is actually worth 6 marks. Okay, so it's worth 6 marks. Okay, and from this pseudocode, what I'll show you is where the 6 marks, or where this program will actually get you marks. Having the initial input will get you a mark. Okay, initializing your total as 0 will get you a mark. Having a for loop should get you a mark. Okay, having the calculation, having the running total should also get you a mark, and then calculating the average, okay, and then having a suitable output message. Okay, so there's a number of ways you could actually get your 6 marks in this question. So what I'm going to show you now is how to tackle this question using a different type of loop, and what I'm going to show you is how to tackle it using a while loop, which is a slightly different structure. So what the while loop uses, it uses, hang on, let me just come out there. Okay, so the while loop uses a, I'm going to be using sort of like a countdown, if you will, but I'll show you now. So same sort of thing in terms of what we're asking the user to do. We're getting the user to input the number of times that they want to go around the loop. So we start with the same statements as we did with the for loop. So we say input, and we say number count. Okay, making sure that all our variables are actually relevant to the actual program. We need to make sure we initialize the total, which would be equals. Now I am using equals because I'm using Microsoft Word, but you would have the arrow when you're doing pseudocode. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some sort of a countdown feature, and this variable, I'll call it count. Okay, I'm going to call this count. And what this count variable will do, initially it will have the same number as the user inputs. Okay, so if the user inputs, let's say the number 10, so it's going to go around the loop 10 times. That number 10, not only is it going to be in number count, I want that number 10 in this variable. We'll call it countdown. So, okay, countdown. Yeah. So what will happen is this number 10 here will also be copied into this, and as the loop is going round, I want that number 10 to go down. So it's going to do a countdown from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6, etc. as it's going around the loop. Okay. So that's what I'm planning to do anyway, and hopefully it works. So to initialize the while, do, end, while loop, you need to have the term while, and then you're going to put in the actual condition. So while count down is not equal to 0, okay, so it'll keep going whilst the countdown is not equal to 0. I want it to do the following steps. Okay, making sure that I indent it to show that it's part of the program, and I used a similar code from the program above. So input number, and then I want it to add or keep a running total, which will be total plus the number that we've just added. But I'm going to add another line of code. So we need to get countdown. Oh, I just realized countdown. We need countdown to count down, essentially. So for argument's sake, if it was the number 10, every time it goes around the loop, it needs to go down by 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in countdown, and then I'm going to say countdown equals countdown minus 1. So every time it does this condition, it will go into this loop. Okay, it will do the first line, it will do the second line, then it will do this line, and then that number 10 will go back round, and now it will become number 9, and then it will become number 8, and then it will become number 7, etc. Until it reaches 0. And when it reaches 0, it will come out the loop. And to finish the loop, we need to make sure we write end while. And that's how you do an end, a while loop, a while do, end while loop. And then we do the same sort of code that we've got here. We need to calculate the average, and then we need to print out an appropriate message. So I can just copy and paste that code. Actually, I'll just write it in. So we know that average is going to equal the total divided by number count, and then we have our print statement. So we say print total is and then the variable for total. Total. The reason why I'm putting commas in here is to allow me to put a variable in a print statement. I've got my string here that's encased in quotation marks, but I need the commas there to show that there's a variable within this statement as well. So I need to write the average. Oh, what's it done that? The average is which is taken up from the line above. Close. Just so we can see properly. Okay, so that is our code for this program, where we are using only a while end or while do end while loop. Some of you may find the for loop easier, some of you may find the while loop easier, but same thing again. We've got 6 marks available. Okay, 6 marks, an initial mark for the number being entered, initial mark, you'll get a mark for initializing the total, having a countdown. You'll get mark for the actual loop, you'll get marks for the statements in the loop, and then you'll get marks for the output and the calculation as well, the average calculation. So there's quite a number of ways you could actually hit those 6 marks. Okay, I can show you how this statement actually looks like in Python. So in Python, similar sort of thing. The Python code is, there are some differences like the not equal to sign, but essentially I followed the same thing. In Python, you don't need a do and you don't need an end while. Okay, it will keep doing this loop until count reaches 0. When count reaches 0, it will come out of the loop. And I actually can run this for you. So let me run this, and then you can actually see what's happening. Okay, so let's say I say the number 3, and then it's asking me to enter 3 sets of numbers. So enter 2 3 times, and then I should get my average coming. So the total is 6, so it's 2 plus 2 plus 2, and then the average is 2. Okay. Same thing here. If I just comment out that region, I uncomment that. Okay, this is my Python program for the for loop. Okay, so same thing, I've got my number inputted, how many times it's going to go around the loop. I've got my total initialized. For works slightly differently. Okay, it uses I as the counter, and it will go from a range from 0 to however or whatever the number you typed in. So for argument's sake, let's say I've typed in 10, it will be 0 to 10. That means it will go around 0 to 10 times, and at each loop it will ask for a number, and then it will take that number and add it to the total. And in this program I haven't really done the average and the actual statements. I just said print total. Okay, and that concludes this video on how to create an algorithm using a given scenario in pseudocode.